Welcome to I Communicate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Mark Altman.
Good afternoon. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Mindset Go radio show. Good to be here on Thursday afternoon. I'm your host, Mark Altman. And today we're going to talk about one of the dirtiest words in the English language. It's the S word. Sales. Sales. And I got to tell you, when I started Mindset Go, 5 years ago, I thought to myself, I've always taught sales training as part of my skill set. I love sales. I love the opportunity to figure people out and enjoy people. But boy, what a bad word. I mean, can you imagine if you had a son or daughter for a moment? Think about you professionally. If you had your son and daughter come up to you tonight, they're at camp all day in the summer, and they walk up to you and they say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I don't want to be an athlete. I don't want to be a movie star. I don't want to be a musician. I want to be a salesperson." Tell me you wouldn't pass out on the spot if someone, as a child, really thought they wanted to be a salesperson. I mean, I got to be honest with you. I could count on one hand maybe the amount of time I've ever heard someone as a child say they want to be a salesperson. Why is that? Our perception of salespeople is awful. We talked about last week. As you're listening to the show right now, what's going through your head? Why don't we answer telemarketing calls, for God's sake? We don't answer them because the second we see a number we don't recognize or a telemarketing call, the first thing that goes into our head is intrusion, interruption, something I didn't ask for, something I don't want. And so much of being effective at business development, sales, account management, whatever you want to call it, it all starts with one simple component: understanding what you're walking into. Look, you can research the company. You can understand their pains and areas of growth and how they want to be better and how they can best utilize your service or product. I mean, all those things are important. You can do all those things. But you have to understand when you walk in the door how people are going to perceive you because you're a salesperson. Whenever I go to networking events, and, if for those of you out there who've been to networking events and you look at the name tags and you see the person's name and what they do and the name of their company, there are certain industries that when you see the name of their company or what they do, you immediately expect to be sold to. And this person could be one of the greatest, friendliest, non-aggressive people in the world, but we make snap judgments and quick reactions because our attention span is so short. And now we're in a position where we have to immediately be open-minded to having these judgments and perceptions changed. And this is why I decided to make this week's show about emotional intelligence training for sales. Because most places you look and you hear the concept of emotional intelligence, you hear it for leadership, and rightfully so. But emotional intelligence is really new for sales. And, one of the biggest single challenges in emotional intelligence, but specifically with sales, is resiliency. I mean, how many other jobs exist professionally where you have, your financial success depends on your day-to-day success? You only make money when you make sales, number one. How many jobs experience the amount of rejection that salespeople deal with? I mean, it's insane. You could be rejected depending on the kind of job you have in sales. You could be rejected, 50 times a day, maybe 100, via email, via phone calls, via personal presentations. It doesn't matter. So, look, we can do, when a company calls me up and they say, look, I need help with closing deals. I need help with overcoming objections. My team is not motivated. My team is in a slump. They want a quick fix. They want me to come in for a half day and say, okay, you just do A, B, C, and D, and it's all done. But quick fixes don't work because to be emotionally intelligent in sales, you have to get the root cause of why aren't they able to close deals? Is it because they've lost confidence in themselves? Is it because how they read body language or how they actively listen to clients and customers isn't very good? It could be a skill development area. It could be a personal confidence area. It could be a lot of things. It could be that they're not resilient and they're feeling rejected so much. All of those components make up being a successful salesperson. So let's take a minute to really capture what emotional intelligence is. So at a very high level, there's 5 components to emotional intelligence. There's self-awareness, your ability to recognize your own habits, behaviors. Second is self-control, your ability to respond and react to the people around you, how they behave with their body language, their word choice, their tone. And one of my favorite things about self-control with salespeople is these lines that prospects use where they'll say, you know what, I'm all set. We like what we want. Or, you know, we've already tried that. It doesn't work. Or why fix it if it isn't broken? Think about, as a salesperson, as you're listening to the show, if you've received one of those lines, think about how you roll your eyes. Think about internally you're saying, oh, another one of these, great. That's emotional intelligence. That's a part of self-control. And then the third factor is motivation, how you motivate yourself and how you're motivated by others. The fourth factor is empathy as a tool, as a weapon, as an authentic and genuine tool and weapon to influence people. And fifth is social skills, and that is the perception people have of you, your job, your title. It's what I talked about at the top of the show. So those are the 5 level components of emotional intelligence. But really, in a simple way, it's understanding and managing the emotions we demonstrate and knowing how they affect others. And how do those emotions evoke feelings of recognition, influence, and that magic word we've talked about the last 2 weeks, trust. So emotional intelligence, think about it. What's more important than that to be successful professionally? So let's get into what we focus on. When I'm working with salespeople on emotional intelligence, there's 3 main areas that I focus that are part of those 5 high levels I just explained. One of them are client relationships, managing client relationships. Okay? So let's talk about what's involved in managing a client relationship. Now, it could be an existing client who you're trying to leverage that relationship and grow more business. It could be a prospect that you're hoping becomes a client. But first of all, there's conflict resolution. Now, you might be raising your eyebrows as you hear me talk about conflict resolution because you might say, well, what do you mean conflict resolution? I'm not getting in fights with my clients. But see, that's another word that's key to being emotionally intelligent. Conflict doesn't have to be a fight. Conflict doesn't have to be yelling. Conflict could be just not seeing eye to eye. And so when you're listening to a client and when they push back and say, well, I don't like your product, I don't like your service, I don't like how you're approaching this interaction, okay, even though it's not necessarily adversarial, you need to manage your reactions to that. And so do you get defensive? Are you inclined to argue or what I call justify, right? Or are you focused on listening without an agenda so there is no conflict? See, to me, when you get a person talking, when you've created a culture and a sales interaction where people feel so comfortable sharing their feelings, sharing their concerns, sharing why they might not do business with him, you've done your job. Instead of getting frustrated that these are standing in your way of making the sale, you should be like, damn, I'm doing a great job. I'm really opening the channels of communication so I can solve these problems. But too many of us get triggered and get defensive and feel like they need to justify. And that's why part of managing client relationships, that's specifically what I mean about conflict resolution. Now, the second piece is management style. And when it comes to management style, it's really adapting to people's different personalities and expectations. So how do you manage people? You know, managing people could include how they prefer to be communicated with, right? Are you aware enough to know, is it by phone, is it by email, is it by text, is it in person? Second is the frequency of the communication. One of my favorite things I teach when it comes to emotional intelligence is what I refer to as nagging rights. So from a management style, instead of finishing an appointment and saying, boy, I don't know when I should follow up, or I do know when I should follow up. I'll follow up in a week, but what happens if they don't answer my call or return my email? Then what do I do then? You have to set those expectations with yourself and with the client about getting permission to follow up even when they don't respond and they get bogged down and get busy. And that's a key component right there, because when people get bogged down and get busy, part of where the emotional intelligence comes in with sales is we assume it's about us, and we assume they've lost interest. They may have. It also may have fallen to the bottom of their to-do list. Other things may have come up. But being emotional intelligent is stopping yourself, not letting yourself feel defeated and that you wasted time, and saying, wait, what's really going on here? So this management style is management, of the client, setting expectations and understanding where things stand. So when I come back from the first break, I will continue talking about that first phase of managing client relationships when it comes to sales emotional intelligence. This is Mark Altman for the Mindset Go radio show. We'll be back.